Hello and welcome to my brief take on managing diabetes burnout. My name is Anna. I have lived with diabetes for decades and been fortunate enough to be a diabetes educator for many years. In the world of diabetes, a lot is mentioned about the pancreas, and it's often the center point of what's being focused on with diabetes. Here's our little, I'm not sure if you can see that, but pancreas. But today, rather than focusing on insulin and blood glucoses, I think it's more important today when we're talking about diabetes to speak more about our thoughts and the way our mind manages how we react to the day-to-day tasks regarding managing diabetes. Regardless of what type of diabetes you may experience, research has demonstrated that actually 1 in 4 people with diabetes experience a form of diabetes burnout. I mean, that equates to millions of people wrestling with this byproduct of diabetes that is not often highlighted in healthcare conversations with our providers, family, and friends. So let's explore a little bit about diabetes burnout and what we can do when how we can actually navigate through it. All right. So, diabetes burnout describes a feeling of physical and emotional exhaustion due to the demands of living and managing diabetes. It is key to be able to identify the symptoms of diabetes burnout, especially if you have a friend or family member who has diabetes and exhibits these behaviors. The people around the individual with diabetes make a great impact in the person's life by being aware of the warning signs and knowing the possible ways to improve the situation and help the individual find ways to navigate the condition. So now if we look at this picture, this is often the thoughts of a person who has diabetes, their daily thoughts, in addition to just, making sure you get up, brush your teeth, get in the car, go to work, pay rent, the things that people think about. They have to think about insulin. They think about, hypoglycemia. Oh no, not now. Where did I put my blood glucose meter? Is my sensor expiring? Did I order my supplies? How many carbs are in that? Is my blood sugar going up and down? Do I have insurance? Why am I so stressed? Did I pick up my prescriptions? All of these things go over in a person's mind on a day-to-day basis on top of everything else. And this is how a person living with the day-to-day management of diabetes can get to a place where they just feel so frustrated and they develop diabetes burnout. So, it's important to be aware of what the signs are, even for the individual experiencing it, as well as the people around them. Feeling unable to cope with diabetes, decreased satisfaction and sense of accomplishment in just all aspects of their life, detaching themselves from trusted sources of support and healthcare, avoiding their doctor's appointments, disengaging in normal routines such as activities that provide joy, feeling overwhelmed by diabetes management, skipping medications such as insulin or pills, not monitoring glucose levels as frequently, ignoring or trying to forget that they even have diabetes, detachment, feeling alone in the world, increasingly cynical and negative outlook overall, not engaging in exercise, binge eating, feeling detached from oneself, and just feeling overall powerless. None of these feelings are unfortunately abnormal at some point in a person's experience with diabetes. But as they pile up at once, that will get them to a point where they can possibly just completely disengage. When we look at this picture of a person who has diabetes can have all of these emotions in one day. And people might say they might be moody, but can you imagine feeling overwhelmed, having glucose excursions, trying to manage that, and then the day-to-day task? That is where those signs and symptoms of diabetes burnout show up. So I think it is important to learn how to develop coping strategies to manage diabetes burnout symptoms and try to pivot to a more neutral place. You might not feel great all of a sudden, but just trying to engage in some type of neutral place so that you can be a little bit more objective definitely helps. So here's some coping strategies. So, share your feelings. Diabetes is not a do-it-yourself condition. It's something we need to share with our family, friends, coworkers, and people around us to understand. If someone asks you how you're doing, and typically we just say fine. But if you're not feeling well, let them know. Just say, I'm not feeling that great today. It's important to give people clues that it's not that what you're experiencing and how you're feeling. Celebrate your achievements. It is important that you continue to look after yourself and set small goals when you're in the middle of an episode of feeling burnt out. Maybe it's just I'm gonna go out today at lunch and just take a walk. That if you can get to that goal, you should celebrate that and actually reward yourself. Speak up. Reach out to your core group of people around you. Let them know that you might need help. It's good information to give to people. People are willing to help, but the most important thing is you have to ask. Change the way you speak about diabetes. Instead of looking at your blood glucoses and saying, oh, my blood sugar is, if somebody says, how are you doing? Oh, my blood sugar is bad. Or my blood sugar is good. Consider it as high or low. Look at numbers that equate to your health as information and opportunity to make better choices rather than a judgment. Remember your feelings are valid. Don't just think, oh, it doesn't matter. I just have diabetes. It does matter. And it's okay to not feel good about it. You need to be able to acknowledge that so you can make a change. Remember the 4 R's. Pay attention to rest, recreation, regular exercise, and relationships that are nurturing. These 4 R's are core concepts for people in general, but especially people with diabetes. People with diabetes need at least 6 to 8 hours of rest daily just to maintain good blood glucose control. They need to have recreation. You got to have some fun. Regular exercise is important for multiple reasons. It's great, it boosts endorphins, but it also is good because it stabilizes blood glucose control. And we feel better if our blood glucoses are stable. Relationships that are nurturing are very important because it's been shown that people with diabetes do a lot better with social support. So, the ways to prevent diabetes burnout, prevention is key. There are little fractures that we can see if we pay attention that we're getting to a point where we're really getting frustrated. So ask for support before you burn out. Support can be from a spouse, family member, support group, professional counselor. Others can ease the burden you may be experiencing. Even asking someone to help plan the meals or actually pick up your meds at a pharmacy can be just one thing that takes and lifts a lot of weight off of you. Accept your feelings. It is what it is. Acceptance that you have a chronic condition is difficult, but a good starting place to help with change and actually empower you to navigate yourself to a better place. Consider you have the chance to intercede early and make a difference. Take one day at a time. It is easier not to feel overwhelmed when we take diabetes management one day at a time, instead of looking at it as a long list of things to do. Again, let's think about that first slide with the person with all the thoughts in their head. It's often easier, if you feel overwhelmed, to just write a daily list of things you have to do and check them off. And then you have that feeling of accomplishment, and you don't have to have these things ruminating in your head, wondering, did I remember this? Did I forget that? So that's one way of actually, just one day at a time, one task at a time. No judgment. Be kind to yourself. Pay attention to the language you use when you speak about your diabetes management. A good example is, instead of saying test my blood sugar, consider saying check my blood sugar. Using the word test invites a judgment of pass or fail, versus checking is just actually getting information. This slide actually is not just for people with diabetes, it's for everyone, but it's one of my favorite images, because it talks about what is out of our control and what's in our control. And there's so many things that are out of our control that we can't manage. The things that are in our control are our boundaries, our thoughts, our actions, the goals we set for ourselves, what you give energy to, how you speak to yourself, and how you handle your challenges. And I think if with people with diabetes, it always helps, at least it helps me be able to compartmentalize what I can and can't do. I think that there's also, it's important to consider the key considerations to sustaining wellness. This image actually is not just for people with diabetes. And I think it's really interesting. It's actually for everyone. Having diabetes is just oftentimes a way for us to remember that we really do need to take care of ourselves. So, being active, finding time in every day for yourself. It can be just 5 to 10 minutes of me time. Learning a new hobby. Being considerate to others is really important, because not only is being considerate to others is part of being considerate to ourselves. Spending time with friends is really important, because often when we get frustrated and overwhelmed, we tend to silo. We tend to, retreat to our cave. And it's really part of getting out of that emotion is to actually extend ourselves out. And then, kindness does matter. Being kind to yourself, being kind to others is really a better way, because it makes us feel better. In the end, it's easier to be positive than negative, and it's a lot less energy. For more information on managing diabetes, I invite you to actually come visit the Stanford Diabetes Care Program website. Also, please feel free to join our monthly webinars open to the community and hosted by the Stanford Health Library. We look forward to seeing you. The webinars are staffed by Stanford providers, and every year we listen to the people in the community who view our webinars to determine our topics. So I think one of the last and final things I want to say is it's always important when you're thinking about diabetes that you may have diabetes, but diabetes doesn't have you. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful year and happy Diabetes Month.